Okay, hi guys, Mary Beth Olive. We are back with Ignite at Night, and we are in session 7, which is capture leads with open houses. Once we dive into the material, it's a fun topic, and I want to hear if any of you have tried some stuff, what's worked, what hasn't worked. Before we get started, I wanted to just inspire and encourage you guys a little bit. So I've read before from this U Squared. I would like to read another for you. And this is my favorite of all times. I revisit this. I was just talking with Chris Waddell before everybody got on, and Audrey, and I am taking a little couple week. I don't know that it's a vacation, but I'm just going away for a couple weeks. And the part of the purpose of it is to reset for Mary Beth, reset for me, to kind of take some time away and think about where I want 2024 to go and take me. And in order to do that, you need to schedule that time. Like we talked about this a little bit in the first section of Ignite about embracing your job and understanding the value proposition that you carry. The reality is, if you have no gas in the tank and you just can't go anymore, it doesn't matter how good you are. It does not matter what you know. It doesn't matter what you've experienced. It doesn't even matter about like what you want to do. When you have no gas in the tank, when the battery pack is, when the phone is on 1%, it starts acting wonky before it shuts off. Yeah, same thing with us. So here we are, 3 quarters into the year. And if you have not taken the time to give yourself a timeout and go spend a half a day with yourself, or even a full day with yourself. And a half a day is probably good enough time. And I mean, take the distractions, put the phone away, bunker yourself in, like we talked about when you're lead generating, you bunker in somewhere in your happy place. If you like going down to the beach, take a ride in your car, go out to the beach, even if it's cold, like just seeing the waves and smelling the ocean, right? So, what I would encourage you to do is get out there and decide on what you want 24 to look like so that when we go into business planning clinics, which I have 2 scheduled for the daytime, I'm going to have to do a special one for our nighttime people, and we'll figure out what that schedule is going to look like. But for those of us who can't make a daytime, a full day business planning clinic, I will go ahead and figure out how to give you one on the off hours, whether it's a Saturday or it's a nighttime thing. Um, and so I just want to read this because this is what I read every time I go into this time with myself. And if you were on the call a few days ago, I also shared about Linda McKissick encouraging us at the 10X Strategic Coaching Conference to think about what our next decade looks like. Think about what our next 10 years look like. Think about how old you are today and how old you'll be in that 10 years, and think about what those 10 years represent. And then let's listen to this here, okay? This is called Choose a Different Set of Risks. The risks hit you as rather apparent and may be quite threatening, but you must stack them up against the hidden risks that you accept when you decide to live with the status quo. Ask yourself what you're risking if you don't go for the quantum leap. The risk is that you won't get what you really want out of life. You've got to understand that you can never escape risk. It's not something that you can decide to live with or without. Something is always at stake. You can only decide which risks to take. Whether you choose to go for a quantum leap or to follow your usual routines, you're putting something on the line. So choose carefully and don't kid yourself with the idea of playing it safe. By living with the status quo gives you your best odds. That may be the surest way of losing. Quantum leaps do mean that to some degree you must move beyond the zone of familiarity, security, comfort. But you can make the jump to U squared without being reckless or impulsive. Frankly, making a quantum leap is not mere gambling. It's not a crapshoot. You simply move on an opportunity you've been ignoring. You abandon your excuses. You reframe the problem. You take a completely different chance. A quantum leap is risking in a way that unmasks the truth. revealing how the only thing of significance that has been standing in the way is you. Risk believing in yourself, risk acting on the assumption that you can succeed in making a quantum leap. Otherwise, the risk is that you will only settle for a fraction of what life has to give you. This isn't a case of taking a big chance. It's a matter of giving yourself a big chance. The major obstacle to overcoming the odds is never challenging them. Until you test the limits regarding what you can achieve, you can't truly know what your chances really are. And the odds change in your favor when you begin to challenge them. But if you try to minimize your vulnerability by avoiding a new set of risks, you'll kill your chances for a quantum leap. So that, my friends, is what I read to myself when I'm about ready to do something, right? I'm about ready to go into a new year. I'm about ready to take some steps, take some uncomfortable actions so that I could have more, better, bigger, different, right? In order to get better, you got to get different. And so I will post this and I'll send this page out so you guys can have this. I encourage you to read it once a year. And anybody have an aha about that reading? Anybody that hit anybody a little bit? Don't all share at once.
Yeah,
I
that's
just
a
think
good
that
one.
without risk, go ahead.
Go ahead, baby.
Without risk, there's no reward. Like you can't have both with anything.
You can't. You could have comfort and the same of, and you know, if you're not growing, if something's not growing, what's it doing?
Dying.
Dying. It's dying. If it's not growing, it is dying. And so there is that bold of, if you're not growing, you're dying. And so when you step out of your comfort zone, it does feel wonky. It feels uncomfortable. Some of the stuff that we're talking about, some of you might be going like, I would never do that. And I promise you, if you do it, you'll go, oh, I could do that even better. I can do that again. So, Alexis, I think that you just said that was good. What else were you going to add to that?
I just like the sentence here. I wrote it down what you were saying. It said you said risk believing in yourself.
Yeah, risk believing in yourself.
It's not risking doing the thing. You're not taking the risk of the thing. You're taking the risk of believing in yourself. So the thing doesn't matter. It's just
and let's take it one further. Believing in ourselves that we're going to show up and put our best foot forward. Not even that it's going to be perfect. It's going to look pretty and it's going to actually succeed. We might fail forward, but risk in ourselves, risk believing in yourself that, you know what? I got this. Whatever the outcome is, I just got to take the first step. I got to take action. Right? Amen. Love it. Okay. All right. So we are going to dive into open houses today, and this should be a fun one. It should not be too long, and I do want you guys to share. So let's just go ahead and dive into it. We are in session 7, which is capture leads with open houses. Hopefully we can think about some open houses a little bit differently than we do when we get out of this hour. And I also wanted to share with you, we came out of the first section of this course, and it was about becoming the real estate expert, sparking your career, embracing your job, defining your value. And then we're moving now into the lead generation, all the ways that we create leads, people that we can potentially do business. I wanted to just share a few books that I hadn't had the opportunity to. We're going to talk about Shift today, but just talking about some prospecting. This one here, Fanatical Prospecting, is a fantastic book. If you are wondering, how do I just keep myself going and prospecting? I don't feel like I have any more spit. I don't know who to talk to. This is a great book that just keeps you committed to it. And Atomic Habits, any kind of habit that you are looking to create, this would help you with this Atomic Habit. So we're intending on creating a habit of fanatically prospecting, right? And The Road Less Stupid is just a great book all around. Really great read. Keith Cunningham. He was one of our guests at Keller Williams for our family reunion. We get really great authors that come to our company conferences. So I encourage you, a lot of that is recorded and on the Keller Williams YouTube channel, if not buried inside of the Connect. So those are three of my favorites. And these here I wanted to bring to your attention. This I've spoken about for some of our ladies that I've spoken to. This is called A Joy-Filled Life, The 7 Pillars of a Joy-Filled Life. This is written by Mo Anderson, who was the first CEO of Keller Williams. And Mo Anderson was 53 years old when she came to Keller Williams and became a CEO. Mo Anderson is, I believe, 85 now with us, and she is the velvet hammer of our company. She is the heartbeat of our culture. But that is her amazing story of growing up as an Oklahoma tenant farmer's daughter. And this book right here, like, you must have this one. You should probably have it on audio, and you should have the podcast. This is the one thing. So the one thing is about prioritizing, and especially this group here, where nighttime is what we're limited to maybe for our training. Prioritizing is probably something that you have to have some mastery in. So the one thing is not real estate related. Related. It is basically, what's the one thing that must happen that everything else becomes unnecessary, and yet you still get accomplished what needs to get accomplished. And if we would think about what is that one thing in our job, in our career of real estate, what is the one thing? Somebody yell it out. One thing we must do. Nothing else can happen
Close?
unless. Oh, well, Joanna, I like that. Yes, close. But lead generate,
Lead
right? So
gen.
lead gen, we have to be talking to sellers and buyers. We have to have the opportunity to have that closing. I love that Joanna's a high D. She just wants to get to the close. But this here will help you prioritize. And if you're finding days where you're not lead generating, I would encourage you dive into reprioritizing. It's not a lead generation problem. It's a you problem. And you just have to put the priorities in line. And now if you got something else that is taking precedence, fair enough. Just understand the season that you're in. Okay. All right. So we're going to dive in. And this session, we will be talking about the benefits of doing open houses. So we will talk about capturing the leads at open houses, the best practices, preparing, prospecting, and pursuing. Pursuing after the open house is probably the most challenging. And how do you keep that rhythm, and how do you keep that cadence with that buyer, especially in a market where there's limited products on the market? And recap, and then we'll discuss the daily success system. So nothing else about your business will have as big an impact on it as the number of leads that you have. You cannot tell me that you have bad leads. When you have lots of leads, you'll just give away the leads. You'll service all the leads that come your way, and you'll never have too many leads, right? And the reality is, if you say you have bad leads, I would say go get more leads then, because the more you get, the better some look. Right? The more you get, the better. You're like, oh man, I would take that other lead yesterday any day. At least he called me back. Right? So the game is in the number of leads that you have. And in today's market, we know it's more leads than ever. Why? Because, and let's just put this in perspective, guys. Why do you need more leads than ever? You have a challenging market right now. You have interest rates that are not working in your favor. You have 3 million people waiting for interest rates to drop so they can get in the game. Okay, so interest rates are not helping you generate leads right now, for sure. And you also have no inventory out there that some people are going, well, you have low inventory. There's nothing for me to buy. Why would I even get into the game, even though I'm okay with paying the interest rate, right? And so then we also have some other challenges with employment and whatnot, affordability, all sorts of election year, right? So we know we have all these challenges, and yet we need to have more and more leads so that we can find the qualified, find the motivated. So dispelling limiting beliefs is I don't have to do an open house, right? I don't have to have a listing to hold an open house. You don't. However, the best open house is going to be the open house that you're hosting on your own open house. But we'll talk about that. I don't have signs yet, right? I don't have signs yet. Well, can I ask you where have some of you gotten signs? Do any of you have signs that you can tell us where you've bought signs? Was it easy? Was it hard? Do you just borrow from the office? What are you guys doing?
I stole one from Stephanie when she sold my house back in 2020. I still have it.
I bought
Okay.
some from the office.
You bought some from the office. Great job.
Same.
Okay. So you absolutely can buy some from the office. The office will have them. You can just talk to the front desk. You want to get a yard sign. You want to get your arrow directionals. You might want to get a flag. You might want to get, tons of stuff. So what I've always liked is there's a company called Oakley Signs. Now you can go anywhere you want. But I'm going to just show you Oakley Signs and give you a little idea of like what they have. But you can order signs from anywhere. You do need to make sure that they're compliant. Okay, so Oakley sign here, we shop by brands. You can see that there's a Keller Williams signs. There are some offices that have their own link to their own store. You can just work with one of the sales reps here at Oakley Sign to just customize your own branded signs. So I'm going to get a link up and I'll show you guys later, but there's some really cool shapes and we'll talk about marketing your open house. But let's go back to this first one. I don't have a listing to hold an open house. Has anybody, by a show of hands, held an open house that was not their listing in the last year, right? Electronic hands, regular hands, I don't care, whichever, right? So a few people. Now, how did you find those listings?
I looked on the family page. I contacted a couple of agents that had listings right by my house, and I met an agent in Dennis's Ignite that invited me to come.
Okay. So the first place you can absolutely go to is you can go to MLS, right? You can go to MLS, and if some of you don't know what your office ID number is, you can go and you can look in your member card, like look yourself up on MLS and you'll see your office ID. And you can actually go and take a look at your office listings. Some hot sheets actually have your office listings, but if you don't have that capability, you could just go and do a search and you want to do listing office ID, whatever the Keller Williams office ID is of yours. And then you might just say like, Alexis wants to look in Freehold or Howell. So she's looking for Freehold listings that are with our office ID. So then she can find the listing agents that have listings in the town that you would like to do open houses. You'll start to notice some agents have a specific market that, so-and-so really works Freehold, so-and-so works Tidden Falls, so-and-so listings all over Red Bank, Little Silver. So if that's a town that you're interested, reach out to the agent. Now, are they always going to get back to you? They should. But how can you reach out to them? Send them a text. I would absolutely send them a text. Send them your electronic business card. Be a little bold. I'm a listing agent. If you reached out to me to say, hey, here's my information, I'd love to do an open house. I see that you have a listing at 123 Main Street. I'm going to want to know that you're looking professional, that you've gone and you boldly asked me. And you didn't just ask me once. You tried, if I didn't respond, which could be very common with a listing agent, then you also emailed them, text message, and called them. That's going to be an agent I'm going to want to get on my open houses for sure. So now, the other way you might look is, to Alexis's point, is going on the Facebook groups, putting it out there. I do want to mention, if it is not a DeMoro Realty group listing, okay, you have to be careful, because I have seen some agents do listings for another Keller Williams office, another Keller Williams agent, but they're not under the same broker. Can somebody tell me what might be the challenge or what needs to be disclosed in that? So I'm gonna go do an open house for Joe, and Joe works for, you know, a Keller Williams in Montclair that has a different broker of record.
Commission.
Well, who's getting paid by who would be one question, but who am I really working for if I go to that open house?
A different agency.
The,
Different agency,
the
okay,
realtor,
correct.
the other realtor that has the
What'd you say,
listing.
Bridget?
The realtor that has the listing.
Okay, the realtor that has the listing. What'd you say,
broker.
Alexis?
For the broker.
Seller, no?
Right, so you're working for the seller, right? Okay, so here's the
broker.
challenge. When that listing is listed, when that seller lists with the broker, they list with the broker, right? We all on this call happen to have the same broker, which is Adele DeMoro. She's the broker of record.
Look who it is.
So look who it is. So Adele DeMoro is our broker of all of the offices, right? And so I can go and do an open house for Alexis, whose real estate license is at the East Monmouth office, and I can still show up as a dual agent. Hamisi, you could show up at my listing in Perth Amboy and you can still be a dual agent, and you are representing the seller. And potentially if a buyer walks through, you'd be a dual agent for that buyer as well. But you could come from the West Monmouth office and come work over here in the Perth Amboy office. But because we have the same broker of record, it is okay. We don't have to get an approval for that, guys. Now, if I wanted to go and work in that Montclair office's listing, I technically am walking into that listing as a buyer's agent potentially. I'm not representing the seller. The seller should know that. The seller should know another brokerage is coming in and they're going to be holding the open house. Now, it happens to be Keller Williams, so it looks like it's all nicey nice. Guys, legally, if you're getting yourself into doing somebody else's open house and it's outside of the DeMoro leadership group, I urge you to please talk to whoever your broker manager is at your office to ensure that you have the right to do that. Okay. So the benefits though of being able to do somebody else's open house, here's what it does do. If as the listing agent, I put the listing in on a Tuesday, what do you think the best open house is going to be? Is it this weekend or is it 3 weekends from now? It's this weekend, right? All of the hot leads, they're all waiting for the next house to come on the market. So if you have an agent who doesn't want to do open houses and they are willing to give you their first weekend of open house, you take that, because that is going to be the cream. That is going to be, if a buyer is looking on their own and not willing to commit to an agent, they're going to be at that open house, right? If the homeowners that are around that listing, because we're going to talk about that opportunity, they haven't seen the house. This is the first time they have the opportunity to come to that house. There's an opportunity there to get a listing. So there's lots of opportunities to go do somebody else's open house. Now, you don't have signs yet. Limiting belief. Go borrow some signs, get them from the office, but you can just place an order for signs. I may not know the answers to questions visitors have. Can I tell you, connecting with people, because the way that these open houses move so fast, being able to connect with people, you're not going to have every answer that somebody has a question for. You just aren't. You just need to have your answer to that. You know what, Audrey? That's a really great question. Let me write that down. I want to make sure I get the right answer for you. Would you be available like 7, 8 o'clock tonight, or would tomorrow in the morning be better? Buy yourself time to just check. Even though, I think I know the right answer. I did hear the seller's agent tell me that it isn't a flood zone and it's EA. Let me get my title person to get right. So buy yourself some time. Open houses don't really work because most people look online. Well, open houses do work. We see it. We just had 50, 60 buyer couples come through one of our open houses just yesterday. So open houses absolutely work. And we'll talk a little bit more about what the purpose of it is. And I won't feel safe. Now, that I never want you guys to feel like you are not in a safe position. There are safety precautions when you get to a home. there are safety precautions. I would also say in today's market, bring somebody. If it's going to be crazy, I've brought my husband before just to kind of man some traffic. There are plenty of brand new agents and agents that are in coaching that would be happy to come and shadow and just help and just have some experience for the day. So if you are in need of an agent like that, please reach out to me because I am the director of coaching and I could just put a little text out into the chat group and we can find somebody. Now, also, I know that there's some other services as well. Okay. So not feeling safe, one of the things I want to say is when you enter a house, just on a safety note, is when you enter a home, you need to know where the exits are. Okay. So especially this is not your listing, you're not very familiar with the home. You want to get there early, and we'll talk a little bit more about, you know, preparation and whatnot, but you want to see the home on a safety. Where will you go? God forbid something is coming through the front door and you need to get out. What will you do if there were a fire? Where is a window? You need to get familiar with the basement to make sure that, is there a door out the basement? Don't go in the basement and leave yourself in the basement with other people out the basement. You know, and so on a safety, you are going to have to take a tour of the home and look through the eyes in that way. You also want to make sure you have a flashlight if there's dark spaces, and you always want your kit for, you know, fixing things, or, you know, hammer or whatnot. We'll talk about that when we get to that. So safety, don't ever not feel safe, and somebody should know where you're at. Call the office and let them know, hey, you know, it's Lori. I'm sitting over at Alexis's open house. I'm at 64 Main Street. Right. So somebody knows where you are at all times. I've seen too many things happen. And this world is a little strange, right? So capturing the leads with open houses. One thing is we need more signs. I'm going to tell you that one sign is not going to always, one sign may be fine, but if you could put 6 to 8 signs, 4 minimum, you really want to think about the traffic of where would people be driving that they may come across this open house. Now, those people may not be A buyers, right? A buyers are going to know how to get the house. They're putting it in GPS. They're waiting for that open house to come. And they're not bringing their agent because their agent's so tired of looking houses with them that their agent is just sending them to open houses, okay? Now, there is still opportunity for you. I had an agent call me the other day and I let her know that her client called me and told me that that was her agent. Well, the agent was shocked because they'd been working with that client for 1.5 years and they thought they kind of fizzled off a bit. So that happens to some of the best agents out there. A hotter lead comes by and then another lead that's not in the system, it's not getting touched in a systematic way, falls through the cracks. And then Audrey's at an open house and the buyer's like, you know what, I was working with this lady like for 1.5 years and I haven't heard from her or anything. So yeah, I mean, I'll work with you. Okay. Don't let that happen to you. But who does the open house benefit? The sellers. Why does it benefit the sellers? Let's just yell out some answers.
Gets the house sold quicker.
Gets the
More
house sold quicker.
More traffic,
More
possibly.
traffic, more exposure.
Yeah, the buyers can see the competition, maybe gives
Ooh,
them
I
that
like
sense of
that,
urgency.
Joanna. Buyers will see the competition, so they get a little urgency going on, like everybody else likes it. I got to put an offer in. Okay, so it's creating like an atmosphere, a little auction-like atmosphere for those buyers. And that's going to benefit the seller because it's going to drive the price up. To Amici's point is it's going to give it exposure. It's going to get it done quickly. Like here's the, you're telling people, hey, come this day. This is, and in this market, what that tells most buyers and agents is highest and best Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. But do not assume that, guys, right? Ask questions. What's the benefit to the buyer? Well, in today's market, it allows them to see the property, right? It allows them to see the property pretty easily, to get an appointment, and it just gives them that time frame. Now, if they're not committed to an agent, it also allows them to go and see property without an agent, without being committed. And let's not blame those buyers. Let's blame ourselves for not incorporating buyer agency and not, passionately going out there and signing people up with buyer agency. So if they're walking through and you've had a conversation with them and you don't have them in an agency, it's not their fault, it's yours. Right? We got to take ownership. Neighbors, what's the benefit to the neighbors? Well, typically
If they
when
have
one
an,
home, go ahead,
sorry.
Joanna.
I guess a neighbor, if they see right the activity, it could, and they're thinking or they're on the fence about selling, that kind
Uh-huh.
of, tilts the scale, I think. And
Yeah,
of course,
you're
they'll
right.
come by too and maybe meet the agent.
Yeah, if you
They can
invite them,
compare their house to that house for
they
market
can
value.
compare their house to that house. They can make make their own assumption, make their own, assessment. Go ahead, Alexis.
Oh, you saw it unmuted. Yeah, they get to meet their next real estate agent, come by, come in and be nosy about the house and maybe meet you, and
That's right.
brings visibility to the neighborhood, right? Gets them understanding what's going on in the market.
Yep.
Have it, oh, this house is going for what? And then you could start that conversation. But yeah, they get to meet their next agent, their next listing
They get to
agent.
meet their next agent. This is your time to be on interview, guys. So the
Right.
reality is you need to know that and you need to invite those neighbors to come in. Don't just wait for them to come in. You need to go, and the reason why the shift book is important is right out of the shift book is page 71. Page 71 is the 7th level open house. And we'll see that. And it's this little step chart here, but it's the 7th level open house. And it ultimately talks about inviting the neighbors to this VIP event that's going to be an hour before your public open house. And it's a time for those neighbors to come on in and see their neighbor's house. Chris's point, see what their house is worth. Well, the Joneses had golds in their counter. Let me see how mine matches up, right? Because if they're getting this, then I get that, to Alexis's point is they get to see, how are you behaving? What is it like working with an agent? I've never sold my home. I only bought a home, right? Or I haven't sold a home in 40 years. I'd be apprehensive to even know what questions to ask. And I'm going to go meet this girl first and see what they do. And two, I believe it was somebody else on the, Joanna maybe, is they get to see what is going on in the market. Now, back to Alexis's point is maybe they don't need to sell the house, but Alexis, could you not introduce them to a great loan officer that can help them pull a HELOC out of the house, right? Home equity line of
Sure.
credit, right? Because as you started talking to them, they're like, we're really not leaving for 3 more years because the girls have to finish school. And you're like, oh my gosh, but wow, that's so much equity that they have in the house. And then they start talking about the college debt that they have. And you say, or the credit card debt, and you say a HELOC might be the answer for the temporary, right? And then in 3 years, as you stay in touch with them, boom, you have a listing. But you have to stay in touch with them, which is our biggest challenge. If you put them into command and you touch them in a systematic way, you'll have leads for the rest of your career. So the benefit to you, the agent, is you'll have leads for the rest of your career. If you put every single person you meet at an open house into your database and work them in a systematic way, you will have a very nice database of open house leads. Because every open house is going to give you, let's say, on a minimum of 3 to maybe 15 leads. So let's look at it that way. And we'll get into a little bit more as we get deeper. Benefits of open house: inexpensive. It's a prospecting tool. High return on investment. And qualified leads. Okay, so inexpensive. What should you be spending at an open house? Between nothing and nothing. No, I'm just kidding. Once you have, and listen, it's nice to make it nice, but let's just put everything in perspective, because we learned, what do buyers want from us? Do they want sushi and coffee when they get to did they say that? What do they want?
Information.
Knowledge.
They want us to know things, and they want us to find their house. That's it. They want us to negotiate, and they want us to find their house. The number one thing is they want a house. So stop loading up your activities, and I am saying this kindly, but you might spend an hour running around for cookies when you can spend an hour running around the neighborhood with a neighborhood snapshot, letting people know, hey, this is what's going on in your home. Wait, where's the cookies? You want cookies? I'll bring you cookies tomorrow, right? And then go bring him cookies tomorrow. It's a follow-up if he asks where the cookies are. But what I'm trying to make a point, guys, is that that hour that we spend to make the open house smell nice and look great, and the house is what the house is. That seller put the house on the market. Once they put the house on the market, that's what it is. First impressions. That's on the seller. Yolanda's on here. What does Yolanda say? Yolanda says something like, you know, like as if your best friend was coming over. How should I get the house ready? Like if your best friend that you haven't seen in forever is coming over, that's what the house should look like. And should you go do that? No, they should do that. And if they don't do that and they get bad feedback, guess what? That's their fault. Now, so anyway, it shouldn't really cost you much, but if it costs you anything, you got some balloons, you got some, what I think is you put the investment into yourself. You buy those flags, you buy the signs that are branded to yourself, and you make the investment once and you pick up your signs so that you can keep them. And that's my suggestion on that. So it shouldn't cost you too much. And there's also some great vendors that like to partner. It's always nice to have a loan officer with you or a title rep with you, but a loan officer on call, I mean, that's a buyer satellite office for them as well. So guess what? You're picking up the cookies, Cookie, right? I'm going door knocking. You're getting the cookies. It is a prospecting tool. What do we mean by that? What we mean by that is, I'm not going to ask you, I'm just going to say there's a really great strategy called circle prospecting. And circle prospecting would be, here's the listing right here, and we're going to circle prospect around the listing to other houses that it makes sense that I would call those homeowners to say, hey, my name is Mary Beth. I just want to let you know that we're having an open house down the street. Your neighbor just did a thing last night. They listed their home with us. It is listed at $450, and we're having an open house Saturday and Sunday. And Sunday we are having a VIP neighbors only, and it is from 12 to 1. 1 to 3 is our public open house, but 12 to 1 is our neighbors only VIP open house. I hope you could be there. Right? So I could do a neighbors only open house, whatever time I really feel like doing it. It could be from 9 to 10 in the morning, and the open house could be from 10 to 11. We do not have to stay in a box, guys. This is your business. Here's also, I want to stretch your minds. If you're doing a open house in, this is an extreme, you're doing an open house in Hoboken. Well, maybe Hoboken on a Saturday morning where everybody's walking around for bagels and coffee and the street's a little buzzing. Maybe that's a better idea than Sunday when everybody really is, they're not coming into Hoboken. The visitors are gone and everybody's just chilling. I mean, you just got to know your audience, right? And would it be good to do a Saturday 1 to 3 in Hoboken? Probably not. Maybe in the morning before it starts getting a little crazy and What would you do in a condo complex? What time is great then? Maybe in the condo complex that is sitting right outside the train station, maybe it would be good to do a twilight one, which is maybe a Thursday night, let's say 7 to 9 p.m. and you're leaving it open because it's the perfect unit for somebody coming off of that train and they're renting in one of these buildings. So you got to think about the audience, and I just want you to get out of the box. It doesn't have to look like it's 12 to 4 on a Sunday. It's definitely not 4 hours. Like, please don't do that to yourself, unless it's the only time that you're corralling all the showings. But if you're just having one to have one, make it 2 hours. Why? Because whoever just said creating that energy, creating that urgency. Well, if you leave a 4-hour span, they'll all show up whenever in that 4-hour span. You teach them how to treat you, right? They teach them, you got to corral them into that time. So once again, you control that, and all of that is a strategy. It's when is the traffic gonna, oh, well, you know what? It's near a church and it's gonna be right after that church. I had a house in Freehold Borough. Right after church, guess what? We did an after church open house, I called it. and it was in the borough, so we had little old Coke bottles, and I think my mother actually brought some cookies or something, right? So, but that was me putting, I mean, I was a little brutal. I was putting flyers on the cars in the parking lot of the church to let them know. And where did I stick the flags with the arrow directionals outside of the parking lots, exit out? It was right there on Lincoln Place. So you got to think a little creative. How am I going to get the audience and the traffic? Even if they're just looky-loos, I don't care because it makes it look really busy. So the ones that are serious are, I got to make an offer, right? So that's the prospecting tool. You can circle prospect it. You can let all the neighbors know. You can call your own database, right? I have nothing to call my database about. Yes, you do. I'm hosting an open house for Lori this weekend. So I'm hosting an open house for Lori, and it's at and I'm going to be here there. Stop by if you'd like. Let me send it out to you. I'm hosting one of our listings, right? Okay, so that's on prospecting. You got circle prospecting. You got agent. You got and your own buyers. Maybe your own buyers are like, you know what, that's not for me. But hey, listen, I know you always wanted to look at what a buy level looks like. I know it's not the price point or the town, but why don't you come out and check it out? I'll show you what a buy level looks like. I'll show you what a split level looks like, right? So use it as a prospecting tool. Maybe you're tickling somebody who hasn't been out in a while. High return on investment. Look, if the investment was $0 or less than $100, you have a high return on investment and qualified leads, because they're typically not going to be going out looking at houses if they are not in the market. Nobody wants to do that. Not in this market, right? So what are some ahas about looking at open houses maybe a little bit differently? And 2 ahas?
Mary Beth, can I just share this one thing?
Yes.
Okay. I have a friend who's a Keller Williams agent in San Antonio, Texas, right? And they have like a lot of new builds going on there. And then a lot of resales of like those newer homes. Like they're usually less than 2 years old, 2 or 3 years old, these where he gets some resale listings. And he said anything in any of these HOA developments, the HOA people, as we know, are kind of challenging sometimes to agents. So he invites the HOA board. Always it's tacos. It's a taco open house. It's always tacos. They never divert from it, but they invite like the HOA board and they do a neighbor open house, just like you said, for that community to come. And he's like, that's where all his listings come from, is from his open house. They play music, they cater tacos, and they do it just for the community.
Yep.
The HOA people included. And then immediately after that, they do their 2-hour open house. And he also live streams it on TikTok.
That's right. I love it.
He does massive, he's like 20 something years old, massive business, but he does it in every single time.
So we do have buildings, right? We have buildings all over Neptune, Long Branch, Asbury, Freehold. There are, I mean, if you wanted to go into Union County, and you got tons in Union County, Hudson County, there are buildings everywhere. So if you have a building, many agents that I've worked with over the years, if there's a building, you own that building. And the same thing works though inside the neighborhoods, guys. So even if you're in the suburbs and you live on half-acre properties, it's the same concept. The building they're a little more intimate, right? So they all share the clubhouse. They all share the same amenities, and they want to know what's going on because people are gonna be walking through. I want you to think about that though. In the neighborhoods, people are doing the same thing. It's just spread out. So you're using the strategies in both ways. But Alexis, I love that he invites the condo board, because the condo board is different. The condo board, and in your open houses, if there are people that are connected in a city and you have them in your database, you might want to invite them as well to any open house you do in their city. But by inviting the condo board, what happens is they're the first people to know that something's going on the market, because most of the time they reach out to the condo association to ask, what do they have to do in order to sell the property? And so if you're the preferred realtor at the building, I have an agent who doesn't do much, but I mean, 7 to 10 transactions a year, which gives her about a $15 million business because of the size of the transactions from one building that she lives in. So go deep where you are, right? All right, thank you. All right, so best practices. Let's roll into setting some goals, right? So the first thing is setting some goals. Setting goals like, I'm going to connect with X amount of people. I'm looking for 1 buyer appointment, 1 seller appointment. If I were to get 5 leads and book an appointment, I'm happy. Don't just go in there saying, yeah, whatever happens, I'm just hosting an open house. Go in with intention. Now, when you do that, you'll play a little game with yourself, right? So you gotta play games with yourself with everything, right? When you set a goal, one of the tricks is for a buyer appointment. Right now there's not much inventory, but there's going to be something on the market that is somewhat comparable to what you're sitting at. Okay. Know that inventory in and out. You need to know the inventory, because when the people come to the open house, they're going to go to the other open houses too. And if you want to shine, you're going to tell them stuff about the neighborhood that's going on, what new stores coming in, is there a bus route for the kids for school? You need to know all the little ins and outs. So you got to do your research, right? But when you have that intention and that goal of having a buyer appointment, one of the suggestions I would make is, if your open house is running until 3 o'clock, that you make an appointment at a listing that's very comparable to your open house at 3:30. And you have that appointment held. Now you can always cancel it at 3 o'clock if you don't have somebody, but at least you have that appointment at 3:30 to show that couple that came in that you were talking to, that you connected with, hey, I got this other house that's around the corner. Did you happen to see 123 Main Street? I have an appointment over there at 3:30. Would you like to grab a cup of coffee and then meet me back over there when this finishes at 3:30? And that is a great way to follow up right there with that buyer and get them into an appointment.
Great
I've
idea.
done that.
Yeah. Thank you, Joanna. You've done that. How did that work out for you?
Well, they didn't turn into buyers that I stayed with, but they liked the fact that I knew that, and we went and looked at it, and it was the first time I was seeing it. I would have gone anyway just to check it out.
Yeah.
So
Love it. Love it. Love it. So definitely something that has worked for me in the past, because as I grew up in real estate, it was 4 appointments a week or freak out. So if we didn't have appointments, it was prospecting in front of people to get in, potential seller, prospecting around the open house to get a potential buyer or seller. And, that strategy right there of booking that appointment. So I would at least have a few things going on for the week. And through that, if you're purposeful and intentional, the business will come your way. You're putting those signs out for that open house, and before you know it, somebody stopped at the light asking you, where is that open house? And they need a house, and they're moving from Staten Island like today. True story, that did happen. And pick the house, right? So you really do need to make sure it's a house that best suits you, that you're comfortable with, that you shine in. And if you don't know that inventory, you go and see that inventory before you get to that house. Because that is you're not there as like a door opener. You're there to connect with the people, build rapport, and see if this is not the house for them, then what house would you be looking for them? Prepare and practice. So it says, consider inviting a speaker such as an inspector or a lender. And that's when you have somebody that is going to work with you at the open house. It's a nice way that if you have a little crowd, maybe they're waiting, and you ask the lender to educate a little bit on what the market is really doing with rates. I mean, it's their time to shine also. And so don't feel like don't put it on yourself that you have to get them business. But while they're there, I hope that you pick a lender that is seeing the opportunity that you're providing them as well, and not just, taking that for granted. So preparing and practicing is not just seeing the house for the first time when you get to the house. Now, if you can't physically get there before if you can't preview the property, I understand that. You can really do your research online. You can go on Google Earth, you can go on the Google Street View. Hopefully the agent has great pictures of the inside. You could see other houses. You could drive the neighborhood, get there a little early, right? So you can do your research even if you don't know the house, but I say pick something that you're super comfortable with, that you're confident in, and that your knowledge and your expertise starts to show through. Pick a time, like we just kind of went over that. Like, is it a Thursday night? Is that more the audience? Is it wine and cheese, where it's something in like an arts district and it's a very artsy house and that just makes sense? Is it a new construction? Now, if you have new construction open houses, I would really urge you to talk with your team leader or myself, just to come up with some different ideas. Alexis, you kind of gave a few. Having live music, having a DJ, but this is stuff that when you're launching a project, that's very different than you're hosting an open house for a house that is active on the market. When you are bringing a project to market that nobody has ever seen before, it's special. And so the other part about the open house is a lot of our houses haven't come to market in 40 years, 30 years. And so keep the same mindset, it's special. You're bringing this homeowner's house to market. And so how could you make it more special? Okay. Now, so like we said, Sunday afternoon isn't always the time. And I would tell you, especially in football season, BB, go ahead,
I
BB.
have a question regarding, like, I recently did an open house a couple months ago, and the lender that was there, it wasn't my listing, but the listing agent was there and had a lender that had this whole setup for capturing the people's information electronically. And I was there with my clipboard because I like to make little notes about people so I remember them. And like I felt, I don't know, like it's kind of overwhelming for people. They don't want to give you the information anyway. I
Yeah.
like to talk to them a little before I ask. We actually had somebody walk out when they asked, the lender, because I was already talking to the people and they were just like, oh, and
Too
so
much,
like,
too
how
much.
do you handle that? Because they want to capture stuff too, but then if you're at both asking,
I would just say I've never had that situation, to be honest. It's one of us is getting the information. How are we getting the information? Like, I don't mind if they're putting somebody's number in their phone or something, but there should just be one form of sign in, like you said, because people don't want to put their information down once, let alone twice. Now, I would suggest you even consider doing a QR code to a Google form or a QR code to a landing page that lands into command. I like the Google form in that I can look at it as an Excel sheet and use it for many different things. You put it to command, it's going to be automatically put into command as leads. So there's a way to just have that QR code and let them sign in that way. But I also find that I've had people do it and then they just don't press the submit and now I don't have their information. So you still have to make them kind of do it right in front of you. But BB, I don't think that you and the lender or the inspector or whoever else is there hosting the open house should have two different sign-ins. I think it should be, we're a team, and that's how the customers should see you. And it shouldn't be confusing or mundane. Okay. I
thank you.
also think it's very wise for you all to have an electronic card in some way, whether you've taken a picture of your business card, which I know some people like, or you're using some of the technology that's out there. Like I have a Blink card and I'm able to just capture it and send it off, and all of your username, your handles are there, your email, your phone, and your picture, so that they remember you. Okay. And that right there, I would say, what's your number? Let me just shoot you my information right now. If I am connecting with somebody, even though they might have signed in on my sign-in page, I'm going to make sure I get them also another way. And I'm just going to have them text me right there. I'll send them my business card. But once again, I'm not going to have a lender now jump in and start to do that as well. It's like we're doing it one way. Team together. Okay. So picking the time, we said Sunday might not even be great in this market, but preparing your stats, know your market. If you know me, you know I love the market snapshot. I love looking at the data. I posted some things. You can go into MLS and you can pull quarterly stats. You can pull year to date versus year to date in any town. We can do an every Monday I'm on my call in the morning and we're pulling stats. So if you don't know the stats, shame on you. You should know how many homes are listed. You should know how many are under contract. You should know what the average day on market is. You should know, even the morning you go to that open house, you better look in MLS because something might have hit that morning. Right? So really know, and look, if there's a question that you have, chances are a buyer that's going to walk in may have it as well. So if you're like, you know what happened with this one? Why is it on 146 days? Call the agent. Just try to find the information so that you're not getting that question and you're like, oh, I don't know, I saw that, I'm not sure. How about, yeah, I called the agent, left a few messages, but I will let you know what happened with that house. Would you like me to follow up with you? Right? You be the professional. So prepare the stats. I would, even in this market, I would have something to give them. Maybe on the back of the flyer, the market stats are there to remind them how fast things are moving. One of the stats that I was showing this morning, guys, was that your $300,000 to $500,000 product is it's the one that is 30 and 40% like down in units. Okay. So when if you're out there running with the $400,000 buyer, like we feel your pain. I'm in it, right? Anybody else running with the 400, a 350, a 425, okay? That across two of them, Chris has got two. Yeah, I got that across the board is the market that has the least amount of units compared to last year. Okay? So guess what that means for sellers? When the VIP neighborhood only comes in, you tell them, guys, listen, 300,000 to 500,000. Oh my gosh, almost half the units than last year. That means people are like dying to get into your unit, and they'll pay whatever supply and demand is definitely affecting your sector of the market. Now, the market of 750 and over, not as bad. It was like 15% less units than were last year. But in the lower bracket, we were talking about 35 and 40% less units available. So that kind of stuff matters when you're talking to buyers and sellers at an open house. I promise you, nobody else at open house is knowing those stats before they go to the open house. So come up with something different that they're like, oh, that was the open house with the girl that was talking about. Right? And be safe. We talked about this. Use a buddy system. Have somebody shadow. Arrive early. Check out the street. Park on the street. Don't park in the driveway. That's really for etiquette. Don't park in the driveway. Like, let people walk up to the driveway, see the house. Let them not just see your realtor car with all the signs in the back. No, not you guys, right? Okay, so check all your entrances and exits. Make sure your cell phone is fully charged. Bring a charger. Turn the lights on. Open up the blinds. Make it nice and bright. Check out your local COVID guidelines. Some of those are still needed for some of our files. I'm not sure. And then follow Market Center guidelines and checklists for open houses. Guys, there is an open house sign-in. I've had people make them on Canva, make them in commands, do what you like, do the QR, but have something, right? Have something. Also, when you're at the open house, what are some things, let's just, throw it in the chat or share. What are some things that you kind of display out on your table? What do you put out to show professional?
Your
Go ahead.
business,
Business cards.
Thank you, Tahani. Business cards, Bridget's business cards. What else?
MLS sheets, seller's disclosure, survey. Hide a CIS in there somewhere. I know we need it at every open house.
Yep. So all of that, you don't even have to hide the CIS. You could just take them, put a stack of them there. Everybody you meet, you could just give them one, right? You could also put the CIS on the back, the one-pager CIS. You could put it on the back of the flyer. Have having the seller's disclosure, if there is one, just laid out so that they see it, they could read it. One, you're not letting anybody take it. You're like, would you like me to email you a copy? Have all of that at your fingertips on your phone. Put that all in an email so that you could forward out an email to anybody who's interested in the seller's disclosure, the survey. If you do have a survey, if people are concerned with where the property lines are, whatever extra pictures, we're going into the winter time. Maybe some people have pictures of their pool that's open and they want to show the grounds when they're so nice, you know, without the leaves falling off the tree. You may want to have some of these books up there. We have Flip, we have Hold, and we have the Millionaire Real Estate Agent. That's all about investing. You might want to have them sitting right there, and on top, put the big fat one, put the red one, put the Millionaire Real Estate Agent, because guess what? You might have somebody go, I'm thinking about getting into real estate, or, oh, I'm in real estate school. Great, here's my card. Let's stay in touch. Why don't we have coffee? Let me introduce you to my team leader. I want you guys to build your passive income. Okay? Passive income is important. You make profit share when you introduce people to Keller Williams and they make money for the company. Okay. So all of those things are great. The CIS is pretty necessary. A flyer with the information, the MLS sheet, pretty necessary. Business cards as well. You know, and just think about what would be of value to you, and think about what the buyer asked for. Okay, not what we think. What about
If- A mortgage rep or referral, somebody, like information from a mortgage person?
yeah. What about just, here's what this house would cost with the 20% down, with the 10% down, with the 3.5% down. Here's what this would cost with the down payment assistance program. Ask me. Okay. That might be something that we ask our movement mortgage partners to bring to the table when we're at our open houses, right? Bring some marketing pieces that shows the consumer what this is actually going to cost them. Because forget about the sticker price. Let's just talk about, do you like the monthly payment? Well, forget about even if you like it. Can you handle the monthly payment? Okay. Anything else that I'm missing that you might have out at your tables? Okay. All right. So
Can I ask
prepare.
you,
Go
can I
ahead,
ask you a quick question? I'm
Chris.
sorry.
Mhm.
The seller's disclosure. Is that a mandatory thing to have?
No.
Okay. 'Cause
Now,
I'm-
now in
um,
your Spring Lake. No, okay. So in Staten Island, in New York, you have to pay $500 to not have a seller's disclosure on file, and then you're good to go.
Because I like, you know, my son's looking down down in Atlantic County,
Mhm.
and nobody down there seems to have a seller's disclosure.
No, and if they don't fill them out, then you don't have one. If it's filled out, it does need to be signed off. But if it's not there, there's nothing to disclose. It's not mandated. Now, on the seller side, I think it's of good practice to
I have
fill one out.
I do have a question.
Go ahead, Nicole.
I just today listed a house. I got the listing that it'll go to market October 16th, and they inherited the house, so they don't know much about it. Do they fill out that seller's disclosure to the best of their ability? Would that count?
Yes, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Yep, that's the goal, right? Let's take some listings in this market. So great job. And what I would
Thank
tell you is, it does have, if you read it, it will say that seller has filled this out to the best of their knowledge. I might have them fill out the bare minimum of what they actually know, and then just put a full disclosure in the agent's notes that home was inherited, and you know, the heir filled out, or the executrix filled out seller's disclosure to the best of their knowledge.
Okay.
The other
Then they
thing I'm
won't-
seeing,
500,
go ahead, Nicole, I'm sorry.
right?
Nicole, go ahead, finish what you were saying.
I said then they won't have to pay the $500 fee, right?
Is this a New York listing?
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
And Chris, you're welcome, Chris.
I was just say, the other thing I'm seeing down there is, a lot of the homes are being now sold as is, and the buyer is responsible for getting the CO. And that has not been my experience when I was buying and selling my own houses, the sellers always had to get the CO. Down
Yeah.
there now, it's because of the market. They're like, we don't want to deal with
Yeah.
anything. You deal with
Yeah.
it.
Isn't that nice?
Yes.
Well, we always have the opportunity to negotiate. That would be the smallest thing
Mhm.
on the totem pole that a seller would be asking for, to not take our offer. So I
Mhm.
would be requesting that the seller absolutely gets the certificate of occupancy. But I will tell you that that market when you have a lot of second home market and people aren't always at the home, or they might not, yeah. And the other thing with South Jersey is you're going to see a lot of title company. So you
Mhm.
might have an agent who has no attorney representation for their client, and
Right.
you're confused as to what to do because you thought it had to go through attorney review, right?
I don't know. That I'm okay with, because
Yeah,
I bought a condo down there on my own without using an attorney. So I
without
went through
using an
that.
attorney. Okay.
Yeah,
And so
we
you
used Trident,
tried in
the
title
title.
company. Yep.
Yeah.
And
So
so, because Chris brings up South Jersey, and a bit of West South Jersey as well. You will find that they don't do a lot of attorney representation. A lot of title company is preparing the docs. And the only thing I would say with that, please be careful, because even though if your client chooses not to have an attorney, you still are not an attorney. Okay. So just because they don't have one doesn't mean that you get to write the letters back and forth to tell them what their legal rights are. I love those letters. I'm like, okay, stop telling me, because this is insane. No. Now, all right, let's go on to the next one here. The difference between big and really big is how you manage your time and focus. Right? And it comes down to, like, what is big? I mean, your big is not my big, and really big for me may be very small for you, but that might be what I'm going towards, right? So, but at the end of the day, time and focus, we all have the same 24/7, and it's how we use it. And when we